Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. The jury system. It has served us well. It is unquestionably the best method of determining the guilt or innocence of an accused individual. The prosecution has to prove beyond reasonable doubt, and the defence has to prove nothing. And it is a system that's existed in England since around the time of Alfred the Great in the 800s, but it was enshrined in law in 1215 as part of Magna Carta, which incidentally also saw the end of trial by ordeal. It got enshrined in Scottish law about 200 years later, but there was a form of jury trial before that in Scotland, but it involved clan chiefs. But the principle was the same. It has served us well, and it is an easily understood and acceptable form of justice. One only has to look at those countries which do not have trial by jury to see how bad it can be. We look at the Soviet Russia during the Cold War. We look at communist China today. We look at North Korea. And of course we look at the Germans in the 1930s. These are all awful regimes, and none of them had trial by jury because they needed their court cases to be decided politically, not through any form of judicial oversight. Oh, heaven's sake, you cannot have the truth when the politics are unfavourable. So it seems rather odd that the SNP in Scotland have decided that they're going to abolish jury trials and make it the decision of a judge. This is dangerous, it's undemocratic, and it removes justice from the people. Why does Nicola Sturgeon want to do this? Does she see herself as some Kim Jong-un of the Highlands? Is that the direction of travel for the Scottish National Party? Or is that the Scottish National Socialist Party, perhaps? Because that is definitely where they're going if they get rid of jury trials. And you have to ask why. There's only one answer. It has to be so they can have political decisions taken by judges and not allow justice to the hands of the Scottish people. Let's look at this article. Right, I will say that the YouTube algorithm will not allow me to say certain words, so bear with me, I'm going to have to use alternative terms. Nicola Sturgeon's plans to abolish jury trials in our cases are a threat to democracy and risk comparison with a bad Austrian's judge-only courts, Scotland's most senior female lawyer warns. Senior lawyer hits out at plans to abolish jury trials in our cases in Scotland. Ministers looking at the proposal amid concern jurors have outdated attitudes. That's not it. Francis McMenamin, KC, drew comparisons with China and even the Germans' regime. And it isn't that people in Scotland have outdated attitudes, and that is just the excuse they're giving. We will discuss why they want to remove trial by jury. Nicola Sturgeon's plans to scrap jury trials in our cases have been compared to these particular courts as mentioned. Ministers are looking at the proposal to abolish jury trials in our cases. Amid concerns, some jurors have outdated attitudes towards alleged victims, leading to low conviction rates. That's not it. But a senior lawyer and government advisor fears Scotland's judicial system may soon, if proposals for judge-only trials go ahead, be on the verge of a misguided and dangerous misstep. Frances McMenamin, KC, stated her grave concerns about the plans and drew comparisons between judge-only trials and regimes such as China, and she even likened the proposals to you-know-who abolished them in Germany in 1933. McMenamin, the most senior woman at the Scottish Bar, urged for more to be done to defend women and asked to give evidence in harrowing trials, and warned of the corrosive effect of justice caused by the relatively poor pay of criminal lawyers in the legal profession. Now, she's quite right. You cannot get rid of jurors. The reason Nippy wants to abolish trial by jury is very, very simple. The conviction rate for R Not just in Scotland, I mean, generally, all over the world, the conviction rate is very low. And the reason it's low is that there is so much doubt, and it is very hard to prove beyond reasonable doubt. But that is the judicial system we have. And so if doubt is introduced, and there is sufficient doubt, then a jury must find the accused innocent. That's the legal system. If you abolish juries, you then have an executive, the SNP, the government, NIPPY, who can appoint a judge and can do so politically, and can say to the judge, yes, we'll appoint you, we'll make you a judge, but we need 10% of our cases to be guilty. If you can get it up to 10%, we'll make you a judge. Do you see where this is going? You are then not dispensing justice. You are dispensing politics. Oh yes, we don't know if the man is innocent or guilty, but as long as we can get 10% of them convicted, I'll look good and I might get voted in again and I may retain power. This is the danger of it. Now, I'm not saying it is happening. I'm not saying that that's the position behind it. But that is certainly the danger and certainly the perception. You cannot have political justice. Justice must be, and I quote the American system here, by the people, for the people. It is not a political football. It is not something that the executive of any country should be in the position of applying. It is not their job to apply justice. It's their job to create laws, but it's not their job to create justice. And that is why we have juries, and that is why we have independent judges, not political appointees who are told to achieve certain outcomes. Now, this is just the thin edge of the wedge, because once you have established that you can abolish a jury in one particular area of trial law, what's to stop that growing? And so we'll get rid of juries from this particular block. Child, M, this. Until eventually the whole system is that you do not have juries at all in Scotland. And what you have is political appointees sitting on a bench, beholden to their executive branch overlords, the First Minister who appointed them and who ensures that they retain that very high income that they've been granted by their appointment. It's very, very dangerous road. And it's the sort of road that dictators like. Because next time, let's say one of her political enemies may have done something and finds themselves up in front of a court that has no jury, but has only a political appointee judge. Well, Nicola's only got to phone him up and say, well, it'd be handy if he could get 6 years. It's exactly the sort of thing they did under Stalin's reign. Off to the gulag you go for simply being politically inconvenient. You haven't done anything wrong. You're just the wrong person in the wrong job. And that is why it's dangerous. Anyway, Francis McMenamin went on to say, China's new national security law aimed at suppressing Hong Kong's democracy movement is abolishing trial by jury. A comparison to China is not one which Scotland should court by removing the current jury system only for S offence cases. She added, even worse, Scotland should not risk further comparison with Mr H, who in 1933, in response to the dissatisfaction at the Reichstag fire trial, in which all but one of the accused were acquitted, abolished trial by jury and set up people's courts, which were juryless and with politically appointed judges. This was a special court set up outside the operations of the constitutional frame of law, whose president almost always sided with the prosecution and in which there was no presumption of innocence. And that's what's happening in Scotland now. especially when you take in your hate crimes. Simply thinking or having an opinion that's contrary to theirs is deemed hate, not political discourse, not free and open dialogue. No. If you disagree with someone, that is immediately hate. That is the direction of travel in Scotland. And now they're looking to remove trial by jury, because a jury in some case like that would say, well, that isn't hate, no, and find you innocent. And that's not what they want. McMenamin, a member of the Scottish Government's governance group, said democracy is not just about parliamentary and local elections. Democratic participation is wider than this, and she's right. Jury service ensures that the citizen, who does not have to vote but does have to respond to a call to jury service, is part of the delivery of justice. And the removal of juries for these cases affects the rights not only of any accused charged with such an offence, but equally affects the rights of every citizen in Scotland. And also, if you're accused of one crime and you get prosecuted in a different manner from someone who's accused of a different crime, where is the level playing field for justice? Imagine you're arrested for R, and they're going to say, oh, no. If you do R, you're going to have a juryless trial. The judge will sit, and you know your chances are the judge will make you guilty. Even if you're innocent, he's going to find you guilty. So you might accept a lesser charge of, say, S abuse. You're still innocent, but you may accept the lesser charge in the hope of getting away with it at a lower court or at a jury. So then you'll end up accepting a lesser charge to plead innocent to, or possibly even with a deal to plead guilty to, even if you're innocent, because you know that if you go for the higher charge and without a judge, you could get 20 years. Where's the justice in this? This is the direction of travel for Scotland. Your judicial system, like everything else, like your education system, like your trade, like your economy. She is destroying now. And I've got to say, Scotland has got a huge, brilliant record on the judiciary. A lot of things that Scotland has done have sort of evoked from Scottish law into British law. And you only have to look at the fantastic Scottish lawyers over the years who've gone on to greatness in other fields. This is the culture and heritage of Scotland. One of its strong cultural heritage points is its law and its legal framework. And the SNP, like everything else, are destroying it in front of your eyes. Anyway, Ms McKinnon said, jury service gives a central role to the public in the criminal justice system, of which serious S offences cases, they form no small part in Scotland. Even other countries not so historically associated with democratic traditions and institutions are turning towards jury systems, such as Argentina and Bulgaria. Imagine that Scottish judiciary is worse than the likes of Bulgaria. Is that what you really want, Scotland? Scotland's court system, already under strain before the pandemic, is struggling with huge backlogs caused by lockdown, and McMenamin fears the shortage of defence counsels will increasingly hamper progress. The Lord Advocate, Dorothy Bain, backed the idea of a pilot, claiming radical action was needed to help clear a backlog of cases that she said was disproportionately harming women and girls. If there's a backlog of cases, this is not down to the courts. This is down to the government. And it's up to the government to provide more prosecutors, to create more courts. It's not the government's place to remove trial by jury. A Scottish Government spokesman said, as part of its vision for justice, or injustice I think would be more accurate, the Scottish Government wants to strengthen the rights and improve the experience of people involved in the justice system, especially women and children. Yeah, what it's saying is we want a better result on our cases because our results are really, really bad and we want it to increase. And the only way we can increase that is to have political appointees finding people guilty so as to make the performance of the SNP look much better. And that's not democracy, that's not justice, that's pure politicising. I'm going to come up now. Imagine that 4 Women Scotland were not seeking a judicial review, which just requires a judge, but were in fact suing Nicola Sturgeon. Without a jury system there, she would go to court and 4 Women Scotland would present their case to the judge. And the judge, who Nicola appointed and who has complete say over his future, would sit back and enjoy the result, because there would be no justice. This is the act of a tin pot dictator. She is legitimising the corrupt government that she heads. And in fact, she doesn't really head a government. It is effectively a one-party state, and it is a one-woman party. It is Nicola all the way. It is Sturgeon's Scotland. Everything else is being destroyed, and now so is your judicial system. And is that what you want? Do you want to have unaccountable judges bought and paid for by Sturgeon? Because that is where it's going, and it is the trick of all regimes throughout the years to remove accountability from themselves. One only has to look at Tony Blair. The first thing he did when becoming Prime Minister was to abolish capital punishment for treason. It's almost as though he knew what he was going to do. Sturgeon is no different. She is removing accountability from herself by ensuring that if there are no juries and the judges are what she owns, she can never be prosecuted for whatever she does. Good luck, Scotland. You're going to need it. Or, alternatively, you can vote her out. It's up to you. Thank you for listening. I'm going to stop now. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Or don't. It's not a dictatorship. But please do. Ring the bell for notification of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, dear friends, stay safe, stay well, maintain your jury system, and goodbye.